Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Recha HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing His word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Quan Wall through the Great Millstone Charlotte Camp. Come up with a quick lesson through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. And this morning, I just wanted to touch, on this video here, with Chris Paul, right? And the price of a corruptible crown, man, because as this video is titled, The Heartbreaking Reality of Chasing Greatness, right? They do it for a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible, man, right? We all chase, we're chasing greatness in our, our own respective ways, but they do it for in the carnal sense, and us in the spiritual, and that's why, this is the price, right? He's, having a emotional breakdown because he understands now that he sacrificed all these things, right, for nothing. He sacrificed the time with his family. He sacrificed whatever relationships, right, for a crown, right, for a reputation that's gonna be forgotten, right, for money that's not gonna, money is that's not gonna be worth it, man, right, for a legacy that ultimately will be forgotten, just like these, great men of old, going back into history, right? There's many great men, so to speak, right, who were forgotten, right? And he's realizing his legacy, right, wasn't worth, or his so-called legacy wasn't worth the sacrifice that he made, right? Now, us, on the other hand, we know that the sacrifice that we're making, right, is gonna, give us to lead us to a kingdom, man, right? Suffering for Yahweh Shai's sake, right, making that sacrifice, right, as a disciple, right, we're gonna be rewarded for that, man. But that's why it says, like it says here, real quick, 2 Ezra 7 and verse 18. Nevertheless, the righteous shall suffer straight things and hope for the wide. For they that have done wickedly have suffered the straight things and yet shall not see the wide, right? Now that goes into, right, the time of tribulation, but you can liken unto our day-to-day walks, man, right? We go through the same things, right? And seeking discipleship is seeking greatness, man, right? Now these men of the world seek greatness in whatever field that they face, but they make that sacrifice, and once they've accomplished it, they see that it wasn't worth it, man, right? But we have hope for the wide, in that we see all the works and all the sacrifices and things that we've given up or cast aside, right? We see the reward that is gonna be given to us, man, right? We understand, right, that this is what's required for us to be receiving or worthy of receiving eternal kingdom, man. Right? Now let's play this video. Fair use, fair use. This video isn't for any monetary gain. It's just for educational purposes, right?
Anytime you look at a video, an old video, what you gonna look for? Probably gonna look for you.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm looking at the video and I'm like, dang, where am I? I probably brought Papa to surprise him because I always was with him. During the speech, my brother says, and I know Chris would say this if he was here. So I called my mom and I said, Mom, where was I? And she said what month it was. And she said you was probably at an AAU tournament, right? Playing travel basketball. And that's when it hit me. And at the time I was watching this video while I was in Arizona, where I live without my wife and my kids for the last 4 years. That's when it hit me that majority of my life I've been missing things, like just constantly missing things and striving to be like the best player that you can be. And man, this ain't supposed to be this kind of podcast. Anytime you look...
Right. Hey, and he's been missing things, striving for a corruptible crown, man. Right? This is 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and Salakia. starting 24. Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize. So run that ye may obtain, right? We're running to obtain the kingdom, man, right? Men like Chris Paul, right? These athletes, these entertainers, right? People in the world, run to, to the masteries of this world, man, right? It says, and every man that striveth, right? He was striving, right? He was like you said, he did all this work. He made all these sacrifices, spent all this time in the gym, right? At these games, right? To become a great basketball player. But he's missing out, right? He's regretting the time that he missed with, his loved ones, right? In the same manner, the men of the Lord, right, sacrifice the time with, family, friends, right? Sacrifice opportunities, right, in order to seek out the kingdom, man, right? Because we see the benefit of it, man, right? We know this is going to be greater than anything we could hope for on this earth, man, right? Now he had that thought, right, in regards to his basketball career, but now he's seeing it wasn't worth it, man. What we're doing is going to be the most valuable thing known to man, right? It says, and every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible, right? And like it says in the NLT, they do it to win a prize that will fade away, right? All athletes are disciplined in their training, right? As a disciple, right? They do it to win a prize that will fade away. And he's seeing that. He's seeing that, as he's come to the end of his career, right? Things are fading away, right? People are going to forget about him, right? Lord forbid we're here long enough for him, to go to the spirit world, of old age or whatever, right? He's going to be forgotten, right? Just like all these, so-called legendary basketball players, man. All these legendary athletes and entertainers, musicians, whatever you think, man, right? Those sacrifices, right? The things that they were, seeking the masteries of, right? That prize is going to fade away. But what we do, right? Like it says, but we do it for an eternal prize, man. Everlasting, That's why, we take joy in this, man, right? So that's why when we get this here, let's go to Matthew. This is Matthew chapter 19 and verse 27. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. Right? So we've forsaken all these things, of the world to follow after Yahweh Shai, man. Right? To serve him, because we know what the reward is going to be, on the back end, man. Right? And like, I'm going to play that video one more time, because you could see he was broken up about it, right? He, like I said, it was heartbreaking, we go through our mental battles and things of that nature, but, we're brought back, to earth through this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, what we're doing this for, man, right? And that it's going to be, eternal joy at the end of it, man, It says, Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Yahweh said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel, right? And everyone that hath forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. That's that everlasting eternal reward, man. Right? right? Well, this is a carnal reward that Chris Paul, spent his entire life seeking, right? And now that he so-called has it, he sees no value to it anymore, man. Right? He has, regrets. There's no regrets in serving the Lord, man. Right? Because we're gonna receive an hundredfold, for eternity, man. Right? Whatever it is you forsake, you're gonna be rewarded for many times over. Right? To the point that you're gonna forget that it was even something that you gave up. Right? There's, like I said, there's no regrets, right? There's no looking back. You go through the story of Lot's wife, right? We're willing to walk away from things, right, for the sake of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man, right? To receive this everlasting kingdom, man. Let's go. To Luke. This is Luke chapter 14. Because what he say? Let's go back and play it, right?
Got a video, an old video. What you gonna look for? Probably gonna look for you.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm looking at the video and I'm like, dang, where am I? I probably brought Papa to surprise him because I always was with him. During the speech, my brother says, and I know Chris would say this if he was here. So I called my mom and I said, Mom, where was I? And she said what month it was, and she said you was probably at an AAU tournament, right? Playing travel basketball. And that's when it hit me. And at the time, I was watching this video while I was in Arizona, where I live without my wife and my kids for the last 4 years. That's when it...
And you see, he's probably regretting the time he spent away from his wife and kids, right? You hear he's regretting the time, right, that he wasn't with his grandfather. It's like it, right? But you see, the pain in his eyes, man, right? Like I said, the heartbreaking reality of chasing greatness. It's heartbreaking for these people because they look back and see the things that they missed out on, man, right? There's no heartbreak with Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man. There's no heartbreak in serving the Lord because we're going to be rewarded many times over. That's why it talks about in Romans 8th chapter, right, that the sufferings on this side can't be compared to the kingdom to come,
Hit me that majority of my life I've been missing things, like just constantly missing things and striving to be like the best player that you can be. And man, this ain't supposed to be this kind of podcast.
We're striving to be what? The best men of the Lord, man. Striving, for the masteries, like it said, right? But we're striving for an eternal crown, an eternal glory. This is a temporal glory that he was striving for, and he's already feeling, regrets, for certain sacrifices, man. Right? Now this is Luke 14 and verse 26. There we go. This is Luke chapter 14 and verse 26. It reads, if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple, right? And like it says in my sword, the cost of being a disciple, man, right? This is the price, right? Now the price of that corruptible crown is the what you see with Chris Paul, man, whether it be sacrificing time, whether it be sacrificing relationships, opportunities, for him to strive for his greatness, so-called, and you see that, people making actual sacrifices and things of that nature, man, losing loved ones. But, they what's the word? They're paying the price, right, for so-called greatness, in the carnal sense, man. Now we pay the price, in our sacrifice, as the scriptures say, make your body a living sacrifice, right? But we're gonna have an eternal reward, man, right? It says, and whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple, right? So, carrying your weight. It says, for which of you intending, that was the point, but I'll finish that out. For which of you intending to build a tower sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it, right? So counting the cost, Chris Paul didn't count the cost, of the greatness he searched for, man, right? The mastery that he was striving for. He didn't count that cost. And now you can see the regret, right? We're counting the cost in striving for the Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, right? What's the word? The vocation, right, that we've been called to, right? Let me get that. Yep. It's Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 1. It says, I therefore, the prisoner of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, beseech you that ye walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called. So we seek to live, right, a life that's worthy of salvation ultimately, man. We want to, be receiving of that elect number, that elect status, right? And that comes with sacrifice, right? And again, Chris Paul made that sacrifice for this world, right? We're making the sacrifice, to receive the world to come. Romans 12 and 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto the Most High, which is your reasonable service, right? So this is our reasonable service, right? Going back to the cost of being a disciple, right? The price of that corruptible crown that Chris Paul was fighting for, man, right? This is our reasonable service to the Lord, right? To make that sacrifice, because we know what's to come on the end of it, man, right? Get this and we'll close out. I think it's in 21. Yep. Because this is a part of what we're seeking out, man, right? Because he made the sacrifice, right, for his corruptible crown. And now, you can see the pain in it, man, right? Actually, let me get this first, right? Because I quoted it, Romans 8 and 18. It says, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us, right? So that glory, right, far supersedes, right, any pain that we may have, man, right? Again, that wide, we're all suffering the straight things, right? And, people who seek out masteries suffer more than the regular everyday person. But when you seek out the masteries of the Lord, right, of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, then you're going to receive that glory, man, right? Seeking out the masteries of this world, like I said, they shall not see the wide, man. It's always going to come be of naught, right? It's always going to be find itself to be worthless at the end of the day, man. But getting this Revelation 21 and we'll jump to the point in verse 4. Well, let's start at 1, because you can see the pain, like I said, the heartbreak, right, that Chris Paul was dealing with, man, right? And see, we're not in that mind frame, of crying over this world, man, right? Because we know what's to come, right? And this is it right here. This is Revelation 21 and 1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, right? That word new going into refreshed, right? The Greek word kainos. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea, right? So the first heaven and the first earth, being this first age, right, is passing away, right? It's corruptible, you know. Again, all these so-called great men, right? Their legacies are gonna be wiped away, and be found to be worthless, man. Your Michael Jordans, your Michael Jacksons, right? Your Chris Paul, LeBron James, right? You name it. Anybody who is anything to this society, right? Their remembrance is gonna be no more, right? All the things that they made sacrifices for, right? It's gonna be found to be worthless, man, right? The only people who are gonna matter in that time is Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai and his elect, man, right? Or their elect. But verse 2, and I John saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from the Most High out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband, right? So that's the elect coming out of the chariots, man. It says, and I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of the Most High is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and the Most High himself shall be with them and be their power, right? And this is what we're fighting for, man. This is what we're striving for, right? This is what we're making all the sacrifices, sacrificing whatever relationship, whatever jobs, whatever money opportunities, time, right? Giving this effort, this energy, what's the scripture say? Making diligence, right, to make your calling of election sure. It says, and the Most High shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. And we saw, Chris Paul isn't, he was broken up about this because he knows that, there's things that he wishes he could go back and redo, but we're not going to have any regrets, because again, we're going to be rewarded many times over, for our sacrifice, right? He sees the sacrifices that he made, right, cost him relationships, man, right? But we know we're going to have eternal relationships, for the sacrifices that we're made, man. We're going to have eternal, families, right? Eternal abundance, right? We're all that's going to be right on the back end, man, right? But what we're doing now is making our that sacrifice in order to be in the good graces of the Lord, man, right? Verse 4, and the Most High shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away, right? And this is what we're seeking out, man, right? This is going back to that 1 Corinthians, right? This is what we're fighting for. Because all these people of the world they're fighting for something, right? You're making sacrifices for something, but everything that's not this is gonna ultimately find itself to be of no value, man, right? It says all athletes, 1 Corinthians 9:25 in the NLT. It says all athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize, man. Right? So we're seeking an eternal prize. Chris Paul can see his prize fading away before his eyes, man. Right? And now he's looking back at the things that he gave up to receive it, and he sees that it wasn't worth it, man. Right? So how much more all these other people in the world, right? We'll finish this out. Revelation 21 and verse 5. And he that sat upon the throne said, behold, I make all things new, right? Refreshed. And he said unto me, write, for these words are true and faithful. And this is what, We hold our hats on, so to speak, man, right? That this word is faithful and true, right? That all these things are going to come to pass, right? So that's why we're willing to do, whatever it takes in order to get there, man, right? Just like these people of the world, right, make the sacrifice to obtain their corruptible crowns, how much more us to obtain this eternal crown, man, But that's the price, right? You make that sacrifice, you lose out on things, so to speak, right? But we have no regrets, right? Because we know what's to come, right? We know these words are faithful and true, So, Lord willing, that was edifying to the spirit and probably how about Shema Shai. I'm going to close by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Recha HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom.